Hey guys, what's up? It's Cover here. Today we're going into Volume 2 of the Old School RuneScape Weapon Identity Crisis Ranged. Just some starting thoughts. It is my favorite skill, and the core of each style I think actually has a very strong identity. But some recent and future releases kind of contradict the foundations of the skill, and it looks like it's only going to get worse. Also, thank you for all the comments and views on that first video about Melee. I loved reading and talking with all y'all. So yeah, please comment again. Alright, let's get into this. So, just to give a high level overview of what the range skill really is. It is a mid to long ranged combat style. Your power is typically split between the ammo and the weapon. Movement is often less important. You can safe spot using ranged, and pretty much everything you have is going to be on rapid. Our first attack style is light ranged. These are typically fast attacking weapons with low accuracy. They have high DPS since they can attack so often against low defense enemies, obviously. They punish movement because the more you're moving, the less you're attacking. It uses negative flat armor as a crutch. And as an identity, I would describe it as thrown or blown. The kinetic energy comes from the body. It is the human power that is, powering the projectile. So for the darts and blowpipes, we have the 2-tick weapons. Both darts and blowpipes are 2-tick, except blowpipes are 3-tick when in PvP. The blowpipes actually provide 100% of the accuracy. Darts carry 0 accuracy on their own. It can be poisoned, and the toxic blowpipe can give you venom. And then, all in all, just interesting, like, why the toxic blowpipe really just carries light ranged is because it gives 55 to 75% strength bonus on top of darts already, and it also extends the range from 3 to 5. It essentially makes darts into better knives. And then getting into knives now. Knives are also 2-tick weapons. They actually have built-in accuracy, and for that reason, they're typically used in PvP. Because if you're just using the darts, you'd be missing the accuracy, whereas with the knives, you're basically getting the extra damage too. So it's the high DPS on the Dragon Knife special attack, and then there's slightly less range than Rune Darts. It's like, or than all darts. The Dragon Knife, I think, has like 4 more strength than the Dragon Dart, and then the Rune Knife has 1 more strength than the Rune Dart. It's kind of crazy. But these also can be tiled, poisoned, and they have a additional tile range than the base darts. And then finally, we have the throwing axes. These will, help you enter DKs. I mean, other than that, really, they have the instant special attack on the Dragon Throwing Axe. They've got about 50% more range strength than the other attacks, but they also are 100% slower. So it's like, why would you ever use these? They are 4 or 6 tile range, same as knives, and the accuracy is nearly identical to knives until dragon, which then it's like a 5 difference or something like that. Yeah, and just to show you kind of the difference between the stats here, I guess really just looking at the rune knife, you can see that it has 25 accuracy and 24 strength. The rune thrown axe has 26 accuracy and 36 strength, so nearly identical. And then the rune dart has 0 accuracy and 26 strength. So it makes sense, the split here. We have the rune darts, which are inaccurate but can do a little bit more damage, The rune knife, which carries its own accuracy but does a little bit less damage. Realistically, they're going to do the same amount of damage, but in theory, that's what the theme is here, the identity. And then the rune throne axe is 26 accuracy and 36 strength. I think that it's clear that the rune throne axe really missed out here. It is 100% slower than the rune knife and the rune dart, but it is only 50% more damage. If you look at the rune knife, for example, I would say maybe increase the throne axe strength all across the board just by a little bit. And then also, I don't know how they would do it because it's just so crucial in PvP, but maybe like increasing the dart strength, well, even if it's just by like to make them full strength numbers, so it's not you're just getting one strength from darts to knives in this case. Because realistically, anything with 0 defense, you're just going to use darts against, and then you'll use knives in PvP. There's no reason to ever use knives, really. And then going down here, we have the oddballs. So I just wanted to go over the other light hitting weapons that didn't really fit into those 3 categories. We have the Tonalistics of Ralos. These are slow hitting, really defense reduction. It's your granite, or it's your Elder Maul, but for ranged, but with 2 independent attack rolls. So it's kind of acting as a worse 3-tick weapon. Since it's a 6-tick on rapid. It's got a very cool design, I won't deny that. And I think if it was similar to the Addle, where maybe it had some unique scaling off prayer or something, since it comes from the Colosseum, I think it really could have its own niche in ranged combat, where, okay, I'm going to Slayer or whatever, and I'm using all my prayer gear like Crosslight or the Sunfire gear that you get from Colosseum, and then you would use the Ralos there. And then there's also the Obsidian Rings. These are pretty much just as strong as an MSB with rune arrows. It's just an alternative. No special attack though or anything. It's very basic. All right, and next up is standard ranged, or we can just call it bow ranged, really. This is unique effects that are associated with the bow, typically. The majority of range strength comes from the ammo. The attack speed is 3-tick, and it's mid and long range, or at least 3-tick is what I mean. There's no 2-tick bows. It is less punishing to move for that reason, and there is 100% of accuracy is on each of the bows. There is all your accuracy is on a bow. There's never ever been an arrow with accuracy on it until now, with the new Seeker arrows. So, what is the identity? I would say the identity of standard is it's a bow, but realistically, it is a simple machine that increases your strength. You are using like a lever, you are using elasticity. Those are the kind of attributes, but it's only enhancing your human strength. It's not, doing all the work for you. And real quickly, these identities, you can tell they're not gameplay identities, are they? They're just like what the weapon is. And in this case, I think it's fine. I really do, because what the weapon is already limits, what the identity could be. You're not going to have a bow that just does something absurd. I can't even think of what an absurd bow might be, but they're just not going to add it because it's not what you do with a bow. So, I think that's why I kind of say the identity is it's a bow. You're not expecting the bow to be anything but a bow. So, looking into that word that I've said so many times, I'm not saying it again. They are simple to use, generic weapons which, provide special effects. The weapons provide all of the accuracy and then oftentimes a small strength bonus. Special attacks fire multiple shots across multiple different bows. You got the dark bow, the MSB, the enhanced crossbow, web weaver bow. That's what it's called. And then, for instance, the Venator bow, even if it's not a special attack, is shooting multiple shots. DPS is king, therefore longbow is dead content. Why would you ever use a bow that's slower if it's got lower DPS? And then these are always two-handed. We do not have any one-handed bows yet. I don't think there would be a problem with a one-handed bow, to be honest. Something like Attila the Hun, where he's got, they ride the horses and they've got the bows and the shields on their arms. I think that would be, sick. Something like that could, I definitely believe, have a place. I don't think we're limited to being two-handed. And then to go over the oddball here, it is the Atlatl. This is just really well designed and it makes a lot of sense. And it follows the standards of a simple machine that is increasing the human strength. It is just a lever. You are just holding a stick and using it to enhance the reach of your arm, which gives you more power. So I think the Atlatl fits very well in the standard category. And just to think about something else that could fit, slings and sling staffs are a similar concept. It's high damage and a simple machine that enhances human strength. We could put the, rocks in there, maybe granite in there, whatever you want, and you can just fling that at your enemies. That could be the only other thing that I could think of that could fit into the standard range archetype that isn't a bow or the Atlatl. If you guys have any more ideas, put them in the comments. I really couldn't come up with anything. But yeah. And just to kind of show how absurd it really is, we got short bows, long bows, old bows, new bows, charged bows, fast bows, slow bows, magic bows, plain bows, dead bows, live bows, and both of these. So, the next style is heavy. Heavy are slow weapons, typically, but there are 2-3 tick weapons, which kind of break that style. Really, the special effects are coming from ammo. Ruby overshadows every other bolt, not even in question. You have, diamond bolts, which are okay, the onyx bolts, which are alkables, and then sapphire bolts if you want to get prayer back. You have the Dragonstone in PvP, and then Opal in PvP, and then there's about 7 other I think there's 5 other darts, that are just worthless. Just worthless. They don't do anything. I do have my own ideas on how to overcome this, but I will leave that for another video. So, back to heavy. Heavy are longer range and higher accuracy than light ranged options. They have 0 range strength on the weapons. There is never any range strength on any of the weapons except for the ballista. They are typically one-handed, and their identity, I would describe it as semi-complex machinery capable of self-propulsion. So where a bow, you have to draw the string, and then you launch it. You have to hold it back there and then launch it. The crossbow, you use maybe some kind of tool. It draws it back and then propels the projectile itself. So, getting into the weapons here, we have the ballista, which is high damage and slow attacks. The light ballista is literally just a worse heavy ballista, but doesn't require Monkey Madness 2. Genuinely, they just need to just remove it from Monkey Madness 2. Completely separate it. I don't care. Put it on Scurrius. Put it on some other kind of low-level boss. Because literally right now, you get a bronze javelin from a goblin 5 minutes into playing the game, and you can't do anything with it. Why would anyone ever use a bronze javelin ever? There's just no reason to. I think they should make light ballista accessible at 15 range or something like that. Alright, anyways. So the Venator bow was once offered as a thrown weapon or ballista, but people voted no. That kind of disappointed me. And then the only other thing I could think about ballistas is that they're used as a ranged finisher in PvP. They're always two-handed at least. Um, Sort of like the Elder Maul is used in PvP, where it's a slow-hitting weapon, so people use it to kind of finish off their opponents. Next, we have the actual crossbows. I split it into the bolt effect crossbows is how I'm defining these. These are restricted basically due to the power of ruby bolts. There are many unique but useless effects like we talked about. In general, these are all 5-tick weapons. The bolts have 100% strength and the weapons have 100% accuracy. The broad bolts act as a cheaper alternative to metal bolts with no effect because they can't be gem bolted or gem tipped with enchanted gems at least. All in all, I think crossbows are kind of like exactly what they're supposed to be. I think at least right now they make a lot of sense. And then finally we have the oddballs here, which are the Dorgashan crossbow, which uses a 4-tick weapon. It's relatively accessible. It has cheap ammo. Realistically, there's no way you can change it. It was added a long time ago. It's kind of iconic. So just leave it as it is. I don't think it really hurts anything since it's so early game. Then we have the Carols and Sunlight crossbow. These are both, mid-ish game. They're both 3-tick weapons. The Sunlight has 1 max hit over the Carols and a little less accuracy. I should say accuracy, not strength. So they're basically the same thing. I'm fine with weapon variety like that. It makes the game more exciting. And I'm sure when Carols was released, they did not consider it whatsoever. But nowadays, it doesn't quite make sense. I mean, at least with the Carols, I can appreciate that it's using bolt racks. Therefore, it's repeating using like a gravity dropper or whatever. But what is the Hunter Sunlight crossbow doing that makes it 3-tick? It's just like, okay, I'm just going to shoot this thing really fast now. I guess maybe you have a bunch of agility or whatever. All in all, I'm not the biggest fan because there aren't bolt effects here. I mean, the Carols does have bolt effects, but that's due to the gear that you wear, not just the bolts. I think it would be interesting if there could just be some sort of bolt effect tagged on to the Hunter's crossbow. Even if it's just something simple. Maybe you can do the same thing you did with the Essential crossbow and just give them, diamond and sapphire or diamond and dragonstone on those bolt tips or something. And the reason I'm saying this is going back to the video that I talked about last week. If you watch it back again, in the very beginning, they do describe crossbows using enchanted effects on their bolts as their identity. That is the identity of crossbows. Now, to be honest, with all of that said, I do not think that the dual-wield crossbows, Ascension crossbows, really do break the identity of heavy ranged. These are, because we already have 3-tick weapons, we have 2 of them. It's part of the thing. Even if they're not bolt effects, so I think that's one reason why they're outliers, is all bolt effect crossbows have been 5-tick in the past. Really, the part that I'm against is just, where does ranged go? Like, I'm totally, or light ranged go. I'm totally fine if we're just like, hey, so the dual wield crossbow is just going to be 2-tick and that's how it is. It's still a mechanical, semi-complex device, and I think that fits the identity. What does, and the gen tips too. But what I don't think fits the identity is now We have no identity for light range. Light range now doesn't do anything. It can venom. That's it. That's what you'd use light range for at this point. It is for venoming. And also I get that this is also raids for reward. It is at the very, very peak of your, it's the pinnacle, right? I just am less excited for it because I think not only does it limit them in the future with having to redesign bolts, but I also think that it will be harder to introduce a new light ranged weapon in the future, because then you're going to have to compete with the raids for reward. So yeah, I think that there's just realistically, if it just wasn't two tick, we just wouldn't have this problem. There's probably a million other ways you could make a really cool dual wield ranged crossbow, and it would still be effective. So yeah, I hope that maybe it gets considered when I talk about the mega rares in just a moment. So, what are some of the missing identities to ranged which could come into the future? Well, there are, you could throw or fire nets. Maybe your ballista has a net javelin, similar to how we have grapple bolts. We could have net javelins, something like that could ensnare opponents. It could be the ranged form of a freeze. I guess there's also the bolas that you could throw, which could also do the same thing. There are rope darts or meteor hammers. These are basically weights or darts on the end of a rope. I would say maybe it's just like a 3-tile ranged weapon, and it could just work like the Addle really, but for light ranged, or maybe it could be a little bit different. I'm just saying those are additional light weapons that haven't been explored. Then there's slings and sling stabs, like I mentioned earlier. I would never vote for just flat out, adding guns like an AK-47 to the game or something like that. But some form of gunpowder. Some form of gunpowder already exists in the game because we have cannons. So I can't imagine anything wrong with me setting off a firework and it like explodes or something like that. Maybe even throwing, pots of oil that you can light on fire, something like that. The only other thing I didn't put in here, just because kind of forgot to, I think it would be cool if you could have like a stationary ballista similar to the cannon, the dwarf multi-cannon. Maybe you can put a ballista down and you like climb on that ballista and then you shoot out of the ballista with that could encourage a tank roll, which would guard your character or the ballista there. So let's talk about some potential mega rares for these 3 styles. Well, we already have one mega rare, the T-bow for standard. This is basically a standard bow. It uses standard ammo. Once again, it has a, I believe, very low strength bonus compared to how arrows are. It's powerful against high magic levels, capping at 100% 140% accuracy and 250% damage. Really, it is just the pinnacle of the range skill. Of the standard range style. It is a ranged bow, and that's what it is. So, just going off that, let's think about how we would define the pinnacle of these other skills. So for the light weapons, I took this image here of the Law and Liberty axes proposed by Kevin Ista from a Reddit post that they had. And I really like the design. I think that maybe what they propose is a little bit different than what I have here. Is it gets the exact same stats from Ascension crossbow. It's a 2-tick attack speed. I'm totally fine with it being that. I think it's in light range, so it's fine if it overlaps with the attack speed styles. But essentially, what do you want with light range? You want fast attacking, negative flat armor, and you don't want to move. You want to stand still as long as possible. So here, my suggestion is running for 3 tiles will allow you to take flight for 20 ticks, allowing you to stand still and attack and dodge melee attacks or something like that. This could be an opportunity for the light skill to, again, like we said about Tebow, have the pinnacle of what the weapon is. Essentially, you just take flight like an avians. I'm not saying that this is, a a winning idea, but I'm just trying to propose something that I would say is the pinnacle of the light range skill, and it's a mega rare. That's what it should be. It should be something absurd and game changing, really. And then we have heavy range. So for heavy range, I would say just take the passive from the Law and Liberty effect that was suggested and put it on the dual wield crossbows. Fire both shots every 4 ticks, rolling each shot independently. That is essentially a 2-tick weapon, just like the Tenalist is essentially a 3-tick weapon with its 6 attack speed. Yes, I get that the Tenalist isn't good. That's why we have gem effects and stuff that we can put on top of the dual wield crossbows, and I think that's fine. The only other thing that I could think of is possibly, and this maybe could fit better as a non-mega rare, for instance, in the Raids 4 blog, since I don't think that Ascension crossbows, I think they should be or maybe with this effect they are just a normal weapon and no longer mega rare effects. But the other suggestion I had was just a monster of a ballista, a giant thing. Maybe it's got like similar to the bolt rack, it's got like 5 or 6 bolts in a bolt rack, but then when you fire it, it's gravity fed and it shoots really fast, and then every like 10 shots or whatever, you have to spend an extra 5 ticks reloading the crossbow, something like that. Something like that could just be really cool. It could be a unique style, fits the heavy range of complex machinery, a little bit slower, heavy damage dealing. I guess it doesn't have the bolt effects, but again, I don't really think, to me, that's not really the identity. To me, it's complex machinery with self-propulsion on the weapons. So yeah, those are the kind of mega rare ideas that I was having. So, conclusion. In conclusion, I would say ranged weapons have a very fragile identity. Yes, they have a strong core, but it's fragile because the core is the type of weapon, not the effect it has in combat. For instance, the Sunlight crossbow just doesn't make sense. It just clashes with what a heavy ranged weapon should be. There's probably better ways they could have designed it, and maybe they'll, I'm not a hater. I'm not saying like, oh, get rid of it because it doesn't fit. If they can add some sort of excuse or whatever, that's fine. It's just like, my concerns are about the future, about the struggle they have to design for their reward space. If we are continuously overlapping between the identities of these different styles, then there will be no longer a reward space in the future. We will have one bow that can do standard light and heavy, then we'll have, a crossbow that has 2-tick, 3-tick, 5-tick, and then we'll have a light ranged weapon that has, piercing damage or something stupid like that. Sticking to identities not only can give us additional room in the future to grow, but sets clear lines to how a specific style should work. So yeah, going into the little notes I have here real quick, light range is just way too dependent on low defense or negative flat armor. If they are going to release the Ascension crossbow, they just need to change the identity of light range, because right now it would take over. Standard is inflated with bows and is going to need a sling or sling staff as the alternative for the next release, just because there are so many bows. Heavy range needs to be touched up so all the bolts contain just some sort of effect. If they say it's bolt effects on crossbows and they want to release these 2-tick Ascension crossbows, then they better put bolt effects on every single type of bolt. And guess what? It's going to be a pain in the ass because they haven't yet fixed rubies. So they need to first fix existing bolts, then add new bolt effects to all the other bolts. They're just not going to do it. Let's just be honest. They'll get to ruby bolts eventually, and that's where they're going to stop. They're never going to do anything else for the next 10 years until they realize it's a problem. So yeah. Finally, ranged is my favorite skill. I'm pretty passionate about it. I love the concept of mechanical devices, especially. I really like crossbows and ballistas and stuff. So I really hope we can get some more unique expansions like a stationary ballista or something like that in the future. And so yeah, that's the video. Please like and comment, and if you have any questions, leave them below, and I'm happy to discuss. If you have any ideas too. Again, I get that this isn't the typical way to look at these different combat styles, but having these kinds of discussions I do think is important if you do want your game to last not only this 10 years, but the next 10 years as well. So, yeah. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye. To be honest, I recorded this video once saying at-a-latl instead of atl. But I just looked up the actual pronunciation, and it's at-latl, not at-a-latl or addle. So, yeah. I'm not recording it again. Sorry, guys.